Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the season finale of Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast about the hit sitcom The Nanny, starring Fran Drescher from the 90s. And I am Sean DePasquale here with my co-host,
Toria Sheffield.
And this is it, Toria, the end of season 3, episode 27, A Pup in Paris.
I can't believe it. I feel like season 3 went by in a total blur.
That's interesting. I feel like we've been doing season 3 for 10 years.
But I think both are true.
Two things can be true. This was an episode written by Diane Wilk and directed by Dorothy Lyman, a great team, Wilk and Lyman. And this is the one in which Fran and Mr. Sheffield accidentally go to Paris. Well, Fran accidentally goes to Paris with Mr. Sheffield.
Mm-hmm. It's a classic switcheroo episode.
So much so that this episode gets very meta, making fun of this, and like they bring it up a lot where they're like, only you, Fran, you know?
Yes. One of my favorite lines of this episode calls attention to how absurd this is, but also how like classic this is for Fran. So the episode starts off establishing that Fran is supposed to take Chester to the vet while Mr. Sheffield is about to leave for the airport to Paris to, quote, like talk some sense into his younger brother, Nigel, who apparently just bought like some seedy nightclub there with his inheritance money. And I wrote new family member alert. And it also seems like Nigel is significantly younger than Mr. Sheffield, like younger than 30 maybe.
Okay. I had questions about this. We never met this guy before, right? Because I thought I was like, forgot some major thing about Mr. Sheffield where he's never said he had a brother, has he?
I don't recall him ever mentioning a brother. We've obviously met his sister, but I mean, I think this might be the first time they've ever mentioned it.
Okay.
But also Mr. Sheffield then makes some comment where he's like, oh, he's, made some, another harebrained investment. This is why I, keep telling mother no member of our family should have access to their trust fund until after 30. So I'm like, oh, and so he has a significantly younger brother, which maybe makes sense because when we met his sister, they seemed very close and chummy. Like maybe they had kind of like grown up close in age, and then maybe there was a little oopsie baby a little later in life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
totally.
I fit the puzzle pieces together, and then was like, that checks out to me.
Yeah, it wasn't so egregious that, it was like, what? I couldn't remember. I was like, oh, maybe he does have a brother. And they said his siblings or something before. I don't know.
We do know he had, like an uncle who thinks he's a leprechaun, right?
Yes. I hope the brother comes back. I like this actor.
I think, okay, I have an answer to that, but I don't want to blow trivia up. Did I put this in trivia? No, it's not even in trivia. Okay. It's not in trivia. We do see the brother in 2 more episodes.
Oh, good. I like this guy. I thought he was fun. And by the end of this episode, I was like, once again, they made Mr. Sheffield seem like a complete dick.
Yeah.
Like my notes towards the end of the episode are just like, Jesus, Maxwell, why are you such a dick about everything?
Because he's a little baby man.
Yeah, he's a little baby man. All right.
Also, I love how we were like, we're gonna zoom through this, and
we're zooming through it. It's only 3 minutes. We're fine.
Well, this is a classic switcheroo episode where Fran realizes that Mr. Sheffield took the wrong bag, meaning he took the carrier case that has a sedated Chester while she still has his carry-on case. And I was like, this is a little unbelievable to me. Like if you've ever carried an animal in a bag, like there's a certain weight distribution that I think
feels completely different. It feels good because that was my first thought too. Because what happens is we get this opening scene and Maxwell sort of establishes I'm going to Paris to deal with my brother. And then at the same time, or like right before that, Cece comes in and she's like, oh, Chester, blah, blah, blah. And he's got to be sedated to go to the vet. And they put Chester in this little like black duffel carry case. And then they put that on the floor. And then Mr. Sheffield comes in and puts his black duffel carry case suitcase on the floor right next to it. And the bags do look similar. But then as Mr. Sheffield's leaving, Fran picks up the Chester bag, doesn't notice that it doesn't feel like a suitcase. It feels like a weird, like when you hold an animal, it feels like uneven and kind of weird. And then she hands it to Mr. Sheffield, who also doesn't notice a difference, and he walks out.
Well, then you're also like, poor Chester, because being manhandled like actual luggage is like so much
It's like
different.
worse. That means like through the door. Well, no, because he's a carry-on, to be fair.
Yeah, but still, you would treat it differently. But hey, you know what? It's sitcom magic. It's sitcom magic.
The dog's okay.
He's fine. And it did lead to this very funny beat where after Mr. Sheffield exits the kitchen, Yetta arrives because she was going to go with Fran to the vet. And she's like, let me take a look at the dog. And she opens Mr. Sheffield's carry-on case. And then she's so senile that she just pulls out like a suede coat, starts petting it and goes, wow, she don't feed him enough.
There was so much good Yetta stuff because she also arrives at the Sheffield mansion in an ambulance.
Yeah.
And it's very, they make it very clear that she just scammed the ambulance driver. Like she flagged them down on the side of the road and was like, I don't feel good. And then as they got closer to this neighborhood, she went, I feel better. Drop me off here.
But we also know that's her MO. She pretends to be, to have dementia. So cop cars will pick her up and drive her home.
It's so good. It's so good. She also says of the dog, or no, someone goes, he's not, she says, I think the dog's dead. And then they go, he's not dead. He's just sleeping. And Yetta goes, I get that all the time.
Yes. So, but then this leads to, the next scene where Fran rushes onto the plane. And she actually says she used Cece's credit card to buy the ticket because she had Cece's card for when she was supposed to go to the vet.
Right.
And, she runs over to Mr. Sheffield and she's like, we switched the bag. I think she actually says like, you accidentally took the wrong bag that I gave you.
Yeah, that is what she
thinking
said.
No accountability. And he's like, okay, well just quickly switch the luggage and get off the plane. Go. But of course she ends up getting trapped during takeoff.
Can we talk about a lot of stuff on airplanes that I forgot existed on airplanes? Like giant closets for suitcases. I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe it's still a thing, but I've never seen that before. I also forgot that airplanes used to have phones that you could pay for to use.
Yeah, with credit cards.
Bananas. I don't know how I forgot that, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, we were never allowed to use those.
Yeah, like if you want, the thing is, it only lasted for a brief period of time because there was this period of time after they invented the technology to have a phone on a plane, but before cell phones, where there was these clunky phones in front of you that you would pull out from like the seat and then use a credit card to pay. And then you could make a very expensive call that had horrible reception.
Well, it was like original car phones were like the exact same thing without the takeout minus the credit card part, but they were just like phones built into cars that you could just like pick up with a cord and talk to someone, and it sounded horrible.
And you had a very specific, severe antenna on your car if you had a car phone. Hey, memory lane. Maybe this is new for some of our younger listeners, but
I'm sure it is. Yeah. But anyway, so
we lived through hell.
We lived through hell.
Cars that had wires.
So Fran goes to grab Chester, and she goes into this luggage closet to go look for him again. I was like, why doesn't they? What is this? I guess it must have been a common enough thing that this could happen because I was like, it felt like a stretch that there was a closet she could get locked in. But okay, she goes to look in this luggage closet, and a air flight attendant passes by the closet as they're like getting ready for takeoff and just kind of presses the button, and the door slides closed. It was very futuristic, very Star Trek. Slides closed and she's locked in, and then the plane takes off and Fran's locked in the closet.
Yep. And then
much like R. Kelly, Fran is trapped in the closet.
Yep. And then we'd cut to like what was clearly a commercial break. We come back. Mr. Sheffield hears someone who sounds just like Fran yelling for help, so he discovers her in the closet. And of course he's furious and he's like, this is so absurd. And then they sit down. And then he's like, well, wait a second. If you're here, no one's watching the children. So that's when he grabs the huge airplane phone and they call the house. And this is what really made me laugh because, they get, the staff at
First
the
of
house.
all, Niles would be watching the children. This was such a weird reaction because he's like, no one is with the kids. And it's Niles is there.
Maybe I could see though, like initially, like if Niles doesn't yet know she's missing, then Gracie could have had to need to be like picked up from something, or like it could be a
Sure.
problem at least initially before. But then
Sure.
instead, when Niles is on the phone, he goes, "Oh, we weren't worried, sir. We figured it was something as simple as getting locked in the luggage closet on a 747." I laugh so hard because it's like Fran is so predictable that something that absurd is just like, oh yeah, she probably just got locked in the closet and is now stuck on the plane.
There's a great scene on the plane where when he first discovers her, he sits down in his seat by the window, and she's like, "Please, like, what am I supposed to do?" And he's like, "Well, I guess you're here now. May as well sit down." And she like takes a beat and she goes, "Oh, you like to sit by the window too, huh?" And she like kind of frowns, and he like rolls his eyes and gets up and lets her sit by the window. And then she sits by the window and she goes, "Oh, but now it's really hard to see the screen with the movie playing." And he like again looks at her and she's like, and then he like gets up again. I loved it.
It's also like, it's just like the classic dynamic of the person who's like always like at their wit's end, but still like has a soft spot and won't get walked on.
Yeah.
But so then, we cut to the exterior of a Ritz-Carlton in Paris, and and then we go to the hotel room, and it's one of those classic, like, Mr. Sheffield's like, "I can't believe there's only one hotel room left in the entire city, and it only has one bed," which, we've seen in many a movie and TV show before.
Of course.
And then actually the bellboy explains that the city is so crowded right now because the new Andrew Lloyd Webber show is opening, which is just, just a little
great extra dig. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, we have a heavy dose of what I would say is not even sexual tension. It's just overt horniness for a few minutes, because literally like they get on the bed because they're tired, and Fran kind of pats it and is making like come hither motions, and she's like ogling him while he like starts to kind of like unbutton a shirt.
No, they land in Paris and they make it very, like, the writing makes it very clear. Fran is like, "We're here. I like this guy. I'm going to like make this happen in Paris." And then she sort of like turns it on pretty heavy when they get to the bedroom, and it's like, lay down with me. Like, let's, she seems to, and he does not seem to be getting any of the signals in classic Maxwell fashion.
But it's more that he's, I think, like avoiding them. Like when they first lay down exhausted and then turn towards each other and they realize just how close they are, he like springs up and is like, "Well, I'm actually not tired anymore." So it's like he's resisting anything, and she is kind of like, she's kind of toying with him. Like you get the sense that like she kind of is enjoying making him a little uncomfortable, but like if he were to kiss her, I think she'd be down. So, it's kind of a little bit of new energy.
Well, and it tracks with where he ends up or that's not till the next episode, I think. But it tracks to, it's all one story. So it tracks to where he ends up at the end of this arc. Yeah. Sure.
And then they end up getting interrupted anyway by his brother Nigel, who I said who seems realistically like Maxwell Sheffield's little brother, played by an English actor named Harry Van Gorkum, and who, as we said, like he portrays this character in 2 other episodes. And this was probably like my favorite scene of the whole episode. Because
mine too. And I feel like I'm going to blow all of my favorite quotes because there's so much good stuff in this scene.
Yeah, it's fine. It's the finale. We can get loosey-goosey.
We get loose. So we meet Nigel, and there's a fantastic exchange where Mr. Sheffield goes, "This is my nanny." And then Nigel goes, "Oh, you brought the kids?" And he sort of like looks around the room. And then Mr. Sheffield goes, No, they're in New York. And then Nigel goes, "Oh, I get it. Nanny, spank, spank."
Yes, it's very funny.
So good. Yeah, I get it. Nanny, spank, spank.
And he was very good at that type of sort of like, gosh, I'm losing my words this morning, but that type of like, upper class English guy that's kind of, very much like, I'm not, let's just go have fun. Like anything, like nothing matters. Like we have all the money in the world. But so Maxwell and Nigel, they start off civil, and then it completely descends into just like 2 brothers wrestling and slapping at each other because, the crux of their issue is, Mr. Sheffield is basically like, "Oh, come on, Nigel. Like, don't you think it's time you grow up a bit and do something real with your life? And, this whole nightclub business is just silliness." And then Nigel is basically like, "No, like, I like this, and you've become old and boring and out of touch, and they just literally end up wrestling on the bed, and Fran breaks it up. Nigel storms out, and then they're alone again. And at this point, Mr. Sheffield's like, oh, this was a disaster. Let's just go home. And Fran's like, she says something where she's like, no, we've come all this way. It would be such a shame if you don't mend things with your brother. Like, let's just go to his club tonight. And then I think she says something like, if we have to, go eat French food, drink French champagne, and go to that nightclub, like, we should just make that sacrifice. So clearly also, it's totally self-serving. And then he's like, oh, right. Well, we do have a few hours until his club opens. Like, what should we do before then? And she's literally like, Mr. Sheffield, I want you to take me. And she like pulls him towards her. And then she's like, shopping.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Well, and then we get the answer to my question from last week, which was, wow, did they really schlep the entire cast and crew to both an island cruise vacation and then the very next episode take them to Paris? And the answer is no. They shot 90% of this episode on a stage in Los Angeles, and then it looks like they flew Mr. Sheffield and Fran to Paris with like a minimal crew, to the point where, I don't know if you noticed this, but the film stock changes when we get this Paris shopping montage, and they are just handheld shooting on a film camera, and it looks gorgeous.
I'm not even sure they were in Paris at all.
Oh, they were 100% in Paris. Definitely. 100%.
Okay, but then a lot of this was also green screen.
Nah, it wasn't.
No, a lot of it was green screen.
Nope. Green screen didn't look this good back then.
No. A lot of it was green screen. Rewatch it.
Well, yeah, the Eiffel Tower stuff.
If you rewatch it, you'll realize 90% of it was green screen.
Hilarious.
Even them coming in and out of some stores was green screen.
Crazy.
Yeah, because I looked online because I was like, oh, well, this is like slightly less quality B-roll than I was expecting. But
interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira, pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Chegou a melhor parte do podcast. É hora de provar a melhor Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola sem açúcar. O sabor irresistível da Coca-Cola, sem açúcar e igualmente refrescante. Coca-Cola sem açúcar. A melhor escolha.
End result is we are supposed to get the impression that they had this like wonderful, picturesque day in Paris. They're going in and out of stores where it's like, Fran goes in the outfit she arrived in and she pops out in this like adorable, chic, sort of retro mini skirt and top. I think Chester even has a new outfit. They're seeing the Eiffel Tower. I think one of the most awkward green screen shots is when they're supposed to look like they're enjoying ice cream cones. They're clearly just on a soundstage being told, like, look like you're looking around at a bustling city. But they have this wonderful day, and it ends up with them that evening in Nigel's nightclub. Fran looks fabulous in this dress. And Eartha Kitt is singing, very, very famous singer. And I just wrote, do you remember her in Ernest Scared Stupid?
Yeah. I mean, Eartha Kitt had an amazing singing career and then sort of like got more fame when she took over as Catwoman on the 60s, on the Adam West 60s Batman. And then this cameo is like the late stage of Eartha Kitt, where she was both playing off of her singing career and the Catwoman thing, which is why we're getting a lot of like
yes,
in this.
She was a very just like sexy, sensual singer. Yeah. And she's an amazing Catwoman. But I just think it's funny because much as we were talking about a few episodes ago that like my first introduction to Burt Bacharach, even though he was like a legendary talent, was through Austin Powers. When I see Eartha Kitt, I first think of the old lady in Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction to her. And she was great in it.
She's great. That's one of my favorite. Maybe that's our next podcast is we do all the Ernest movies.
Earnestly earnest. Earnestly watching there. I mean, we used to watch the Ernest Christmas movie, which I can't remember what it was called, every year. My dad loved that movie.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Ernest Saves Christmas. Okay. Well, that's for another time. But while we were at this nightclub, first of all, it's packed. It has amazing talent. Everyone's having an amazing time. And like, Fran and Mr. Sheffield realized like Nigel is actually doing a really good job with this place. Like, despite Mr. Sheffield calling it sort of this like,
It's okay. So that's my note here is like, first of all, I loved the Eartha Kitt cameo. I loved it. And then I laughed out loud when I realized we're in Nigel's, and to quote Mr. Sheffield, seedy nightclub. I was like, this is like a upscale fancy place with Eartha freaking Kitt on stage. It's not like a trash. I thought it was going to be like a strip club from the way he described it.
That's the point, is that like, the family has underestimated him, and maybe he's had like other failed endeavors in the past. But he clearly has like kind of grown up. And I think this really surprised Mr. Sheffield. And he had to sort of admit that, oh, he's really done well here. But the thing is, while admitting that, he also kind of, starts to like look over at his brother who's like, greeting guests and kind of being master of ceremonies. And he clearly kind of has some jealousy towards him, and Fran's like, you wish you were him, don't you?
It's so sad. That was my note, is this is sad.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it's not like Mr. Sheffield is like, an estate lawyer who didn't follow his dream of doing something creative. Like, Mr. Sheffield could definitely be like working parties just like this. So it's
that's why it's so pathetic. It's pathetic because of that, because it's like he's just jealous that like he's not cool. It's not like he didn't have the exact same opportunities, and it's not like, oh, I had to like tamper down my fun side to go, work as an accountant. It's like, you work in the theater. You could be having like theater parties and be doing this. You could have opened a club. Like, he could be doing literally this.
Yeah.
So it's just his own stuffiness that gets in his way, which makes it just like pathetic, honestly.
That's true. That's very true. You're right. It's like, it's literally just you.
It's just you. You're just not cool, dude. And it's pathetic. And then you're mad at your brother because he's cooler than you. And it's like, well, just be cool. Just go do some cool shit. It also makes a great case for why he needs Fran, which I definitely think was by design, because she could bring this to, and does bring this to his life,
Yeah. And so Mr. Sheffield is like, he's like, I used to be like him. And he's like, I want to rediscover my passion. And he like bolts up from the chair and he's like, you know what? I'm in Paris. I'm with a beautiful woman. Let's go below this nightclub and see where life takes us. And you think you're going to go like, yeah. And
hard cut.
Yeah. Hard cut. They're back on an airplane. Mr. Sheffield clearly wussed out and is like, no, let's take the first plane home again. She even says,
to the point where they're like taking 3 connecting flights to get home.
Yeah. She was like, you're probably right. Going straight home was the best option. But she clearly was just like a little disappointed, but it's like, whatever. And that's very classic Mr. Sheffield. Like, wanted to be cool, spontaneous guy. And then clearly they walked out the door and he was like, well, I do have these meetings coming up, and whatever went on in his head. So they're back on the plane. They're just sitting next to each other. And then the plane starts to shake. And it's like getting really bad. Like the like flight attendants are screaming and like running around panicked. And then they look into each other's eyes. And she's like, Mr. Sheffield, I just want to say the last 3 years have been like the best 3 years of my life. And he's like, Miss Fine. Or no, I think he says, Miss Fine, I love you. And then she's like, I think you can call me Fran. And then he's like, Fran, I love you. And they kiss really passionately. Yeah. And then the oxygen masks come down and we get our first ever nanny to be continued.
I know. It was pretty big. I'll tell you what, they kissed and I was like, they kissed before, whatever. I was watching with Elizabeth and then he pulls away from the kiss and he goes, Miss Fran, I love you. And Elizabeth and I both went, oh, we gasped, audibly gasped. And then we got the to be continued.
And this is the finale. So you were going to have like the whole summer.
You got the whole summer to wait. And spoiler alert, we are also taking the next 4 months off. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be back next week with a new episode, baby.
Yes,
Season 4 starts next week. You folks don't have to wait. You live in the future. Everything is instant.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say, you fucking idiots. You actually believe that, you fucking
idiots. So it's time to get into segments.
Yeah, that was the episode. Segments.
Bop, bop, bop. Oh, by the way, before I play it, this is going to be the last time you ever hear this version of the segments theme, so relish it.
That almost sounded again like this will be the last time you ever hear this. Ominous.
You're all gonna die.
Hey, why are you threatening all our listeners recently?
All right, segments. And now, segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
To say we can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments with Sean and Toria.
I really liked at the beginning when Brighton overhears his dad saying that, like, no one in this family should have access to their trust fund until they're 30. And then Brighton's like, oh, great. I'm not going to have a date until I'm 30. And Fran goes, well, at least when you turn 30, you'll be rich. When I turn 30, I'll be 40. like that. And I also
liked they're worried about the dog tranquilizer, and Fran says, oh, Mom once took a doggy tranquilizer by accident. She thought it was a Dexatrim.
I already said this, but I liked when Fran gets on the plane and Mr. Sheffield's like, Miss Fine, what are you doing here? And then when she's like, you accidentally took the wrong bag I gave you. I just love like the zero accountability in the delivery.
Yeah. And then when they meet Eartha Kitt, he says, oh, Eartha, this is my nanny. And then Fran says, oh my God, how do you stay so young? And Eartha Kitt goes, I have a nanny too. Hello, Lorenzo, darling. And she waves to this like young man.
Yes. I was going to say, Eartha Kitt is very good at that thing that, remember, we discovered I couldn't do a while back.
Yeah, rolling her R's. That's her whole thing.
And I did the pirate R instead of
no. No. She goes, hello, Lorenzo, darling. Yeah.
Wait, let me try one more time. I did it!
Yeah, you did it! Yay!
Okay, it's like a baby.
And then what else? And then when the plane hits the turbulence, this was my favorite thing. The plane hits turbulence, and Fran goes, well, I once heard that you just have to look for the stewardesses and they'll tell you whether you should panic or not. And then this flight attendant comes running down the aisle going, ah! Like, we're all gonna crash. And then later, like a couple seconds later, she comes running back and she runs up to Fran and she goes, put your tray away. You want to get us all killed? And Fran's like, oh my God. And she like quickly puts her tray away. I love put your tray away. You want to get us all killed?
Yeah.
If I was a flight attendant, I would do that bit on every flight.
And then I think my favorite line or my favorite exchange of this whole episode is we're at the mansion and Cece's like, Niles, I've been trying to reach Maxwell at the hotel all day. And then he's like, strange, try Miss Fine's room, 542. And she's like, 542, but that's Maxwell's room. And he just looks at her and then goes, I know, funny, isn't it? And then he goes, funny. It was so cruel and so well delivered and so just like, it was so mean and vicious and quiet.
Honorable mention to the entire exchange between, we find out that Yetta is watching the kids very briefly, when Fran first gets stuck on the plane. And that scene is just like them asking Yetta about the Titanic.
Yes.
And her describing it as, oh, it was great. They had a buffet and a huge ice sculpture.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me. One of my other favorite moments was a sight gag where we cut back to the mansion. Yetta is lying on the couch reading a magazine and very casually stroking the coat that she thinks is Chester. And we never talk about it. It's just like a sight gag. I loved it. And though I think, this was a funny episode, and I think those were my highlights.
Oh, solid episode. I liked it. It was a solid season finale.
Mm-hmm. For Yiddish, I didn't track any Yiddish, but but
we get a lot in part 2.
Oh, yeah. And there also was a bagel and lox reference, which is close enough for me.
Oh, my God.
Hey, I love bagel and lox. In
They're
fact,
terrible.
I heard it and I
We're
wish
such
I
cliches.
I mean, I do love
You're like, there's no Yiddish in this episode, but they did say the word bagel. I'm hungry.
Truly. Trivia. Okay. This is the 8th time Fran and Maxwell kiss, at least according to IMDb.
That tracks. I believe that.
And then I said this was the second Babe Pig in the City reference, according to me, Toria Sheffield.
Yeah, it was.
That's the movie that they're watching on the flight. Yep. And Mr. Sheffield has referenced this movie once before, but they never say Babe. They always refer to like that movie with the talking pig. So like clearly someone in the writer's room like really thought that was a funny thing.
Yes.
Which it is. It is. I just love it when you can tell like there's certain little things that are like specific to maybe like a writing room where they're just like enjoying putting it in.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really popular movie at the time. Didn't it get nominated for like an Oscar or something?
Yeah. And it's so weird. I never liked Babe.
And I think most adults were perplexed. I think that's what this reaction is most adults were like, why is this weird pig movie getting like so much attention? Because it's fine.
I was of the age when it was supposed to,
I don't know if it's an Oscar, Pigs are journey animals. That's my take on it. I thought I loved pigs, and I wanted like one of those micro mini potbelly pigs my whole life. And then I actually met some piglets, and their hooves scared me so much that I realized there's a reason we call cops pigs. You know what I mean? It's not because they're cute and cuddly.
Hey,
it's because they lay in their own crap. All right, what's next?
The Fran or the CC. I related to the CC because I usually don't get what I want, and then I get jealous. So.
Oh, and see, I related to Fran because I'm constantly getting stuck on airplanes.
Really?
Traveling to far off locations. I can't tell you how many times I accidentally got stuck on an airplane in a closet and only to find myself in Morocco or Paris or London.
No. I just thought you meant you had like bad airplane luck where you get like delays. And,
nope. No, I mean, literally, I'm constantly just like finding myself. One time I was stuck in like the luggage underneath the plane. One time I got stuck in a toilet on a plane because I really had to pee and I just like ran onto an airplane to go use their bathroom. My life is chaotic.
Hey, some people are going to believe it, aka my mom. She's going to ask me about this. So clarify.
We'll see what happens.
That's just a goof.
Is it? We'll never find out.
There actually is a story of a man who tried to ship himself from like Australia to the UK. And he was, I think, trapped upside down for like 5 days or something. And he survived.
Sounds fun.
It was a horrible, horrible story.
If you have any terrible airplane stories, don't forget to share them. We're on social media, on Instagram and Twitter at Oh Mr. Chef Pod. There's not going to be a very long delay between season 3 and season 4 of the show, you lucky fucks. So just hang out, talk to us for a week, and then our precious season 4 premiere will happen. And that's about it for me, Toria.
Wait, also, hold on. I just had a huge brainstorm for season 4 because it just relates to this.
Okay.
You just asked the listener, a few weeks back, you asked listeners who, for international to reach out to us, and people reached out and it was awesome. And we had so many amazing comments back. You just asked our listeners to be like, do you have to share your, crazy airplane stories. I think at the end of each episode, we should like ask our listeners a question that pertains to the episode and like hear back from them. And like, we'd love hearing your stories. And I think that could be something we do every week.
Oh my God. We just came up with a new segment. Folks, get ready. Toria's going to come up with a name, and remember to do this every week. That'll be the final going forward. Our new final segment will be question of the week. I love it.
Or ask
it's great.
Listeners.
Whoa. Did you feel that?
Oh my God. Yeah, I think I just felt that. Sean?
All right. Yeah.
Sean, can you hear me?
Oh, it's getting worse. Oh, Toria, we gotta go there. I think we're having an earthquake, Toria.
Oh my God.
Oh no, this is terrible. Oh. To be continued.
The Flashing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
I go, Miss Fine.